Let's go.
Welcome to the Soul Fam Podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, Soul Fam co-founder, co-creator Lexi Stromer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the Soul Fam Podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the Soul Fam Podcast. Welcome to the Soul Fam Podcast. I'm Diana Marquetta, host of the Soul Fam Podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe at the end of this video. As I was waiting for Jensen to join me in this session, which we're super excited to bring to you more ghost stories, more medium work, and maybe a little bit of modality training. Jensen's fabulous at sharing little sound bites of her life that we can translate into our own lives and use to connect with spirit. As I was waiting, I just wanted to mention that we have some guests already who are with us. It may include one of Jensen's guides or spirit mentors who was an actor in the 40s and 50s, and she was downloading me with messages just as we were waiting to move into this podcast. So just wanted to share that there's already presence in this wildness.
I'm not surprised between the two of us. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming back. I'm so excited.
Kidding? Always.
We had to end this last interview, which was a few months ago. We didn't get to say everything we wanted to say because Jensen, who's on the big screen, is on location on different television shows, films, and her own work as a filmmaker. So we wanted to be considerate of the regulations and legalities with regard to appearing on a major television show.
Yeah.
Hoping you might be able to share some of the insights that you've gained as a medium, as a psychic. Let's reintroduce you to the audience and what you really do.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's awesome to be back, and I feel like everything I do kind of comes back to channeling in one way or the other. So, I'm an actor and a psychic medium and a writer. And as I am writing, it just comes from somewhere, and I follow its lead. And, when I'm acting, the only difference is that, there's an arc of sorts and words that I memorize. But then once I am in it and I'm filming, it reminds me of that quote, be of this world, but not in the world. Is that how it goes? Like, because that's what it feels like. It's like I'm here, I'm present with the other people, but I'm also somewhere else that is somewhere else. And I think that's what makes it so delightful, is the sense of like everybody is somewhere else at the same time, which I think we always are all the time. So that's the acting thing. And then with doing readings, it's that, but even more so because I'm helping to channel what I'm seeing for people and sometimes connecting them to the other side. So yeah, sometimes I feel like I live in two different worlds, and that's fine with me.
Right. I feel like that all the time, but
yeah,
sort of in the Matrix, but really not. Really would prefer not to be. We're still here on planet Earth, apparently. However, the dimensions collide. They're getting thinner, more meshed with each other. It feels to me these dimensions are colliding, and the 3D, 5D, 22D is sort of becoming one thing. I'm curious, when you're on set, if some of your mediumship work ends up affecting your acting work and vice versa.
Yeah. So there have definitely been times where I'm in something and I don't know if it's perhaps ancestors connected to the writer or the characters that they're based off of, whether they're living or past. start to pull me and sort of into deeper layers that really aren't on the page. I guess that's always the goal when you're in something, is to get to some place that nobody could have anticipated while still acknowledging the shape of a script and the circle of the story. One time I wrote this series called Too Much Therapy 10 years ago because I've had a lot of therapy and I was craving something more. And then I became friends with this barista at a coffee shop down the street. And I was like, let's make a series. And so we did. It was not too long after Obamacare came out.
Mm-hmm.
If you were 26 or under, you could go back on your parents' insurance. And she was 25 at the time, but I didn't know this about her dad, but her dad had a girlfriend who was maybe 29. But I didn't know this. And so I wrote an episode where her dad gave his health insurance slot to his girlfriend because she quote unquote needed it more than her. And then it turned out that that had just happened. She had to have a conversation before we filmed it. And it was really crazy. I was like, oh, I didn't know. And then more recently, I did an episode of Dexter. It was the finale of last season. And my first day on set, we were at this old mansion and I just got bombarded with spirits, like boom. And it was kind of a lot of fun actually, because we had some time to kill.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of played around with my, the woman who was doing my hair is into this kind of stuff. And she said,
Cool.
Tell me what you see and then I'll see what I can Google. And I would say that I saw this kind of man who was really sad and kind of alone. It felt like this place had been really busy. And then I told her and she's like, oh, this was the Guggenheim summer estate.
Mm.
So that kind of tracked. Then I heard a boatload of children everywhere. And then I learned that after one of the Guggenheim brothers had died, his widow built another house on the property and let orphans from World War II stay there until they found homes. Then an exotic bird flew past my face and I was like, what the fuck? And it turned out that I was sitting in what had been kind of like an aviary. I guess there were some tropical birds in here. But the coolest one was right before I got called to set. This woman showed up and she was wearing a long dress and she was a little bit like wet, like she'd been in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why are you wet? She said I didn't know how to swim. And then I found out that it was Mr. Guggenheim's mistress during the sinking of the Titanic.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, I'm so sorry for your loss. Oh, yeah, that's right. She had said to me, I'm the other woman, which is kind of how I put that together. I was like, oh, like, who are you? And she said, she's like, I am the other woman. She had kind of an accent.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Was she sad? Was she surprised?
I feel like she wanted to have more dignity than that she wasn't just the other woman. It's very tricky. Like you'll be younger than someone and you're dating them and you have aspirations, but then you think, am I in love with them? And then perhaps years later you realize, oh, I think it may have just been like a crusty old dude using me, but theirs felt somewhere in the middle, to be honest. It didn't feel like just like that. And so I feel like she wanted to clarify she was so much more than that.
Wow.
But it was interesting that she was kind of swirling around there.
In that location, but you were so open. I'm curious if she's been able to connect with anyone before, and there you are.
Yeah, she was so lovely. She was very lovely. And it felt like a very exciting trip that she was on. And then obviously, not so
south.
exciting. But yeah, it was beautiful.
That's wild. So when you're acting, so you're on the set of Dexter, which is an intense show, at least from our perspective as the audience. And you and I both know from working in film and television that you do have time in between your work, so to speak. There's a lot of, you got to be there, but you're not always working on set. There's sort of the hurry up and wait. That set itself, or that show, kind of being a little dark, a little dark and comedic at the same time. Did that affect how you acted that day during that particular time?
That's a great question. I was distracted by the spirits. I was like, well, I got to go do my job now. And then I was just sort of in it there. Also, I was somewhat comedic relief within it. So
Your role was to be a
Yeah.
comedic relief.
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, I was just like yelling at everybody in the scene. I see what you're saying though, because that can color things. I've done pieces where I'm playing somebody who's in a really horrible marriage with a ton of abuse, and it does start to get things do start to become fuzzy. And then in those places, sometimes there are spirits lingering who then want to come and talk to you or share something. Like really does attract like, And maybe in that instance, actually, but what her name was Leontine Aubert, maybe she felt connected to me because she was also an actor,
How interesting. She was an actor?
No, I learned that later after I told the hair person, and she's like, oh my God, he had a mistress and they died on the Titanic. And then I read about her. And
wild.
Yeah, we were like, oh my God. It was really fun.
So is that the Guggenheim, one of the Guggenheim mansions in Rhode Island? In Long Island.
It's called the Hempstead House, or it's a massive estate.
Wild. So interesting. I mean, you're there on the property, you're acting at the same time. It's like you're in multiple sort of realities. You're on location, you're in this one reality with these figures, and you're getting ready for your own scene. So it's funny sort of moving in and out of dimensions almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, when you're just on an episode of something and everybody has their person that they hang with, it can be a little bit like, I don't want to overstep if somebody's talking, but then but I also can get drained by doing too much talking. Sometimes, honestly, it's kind of a relief to talk to a spirit instead of a person, because I'm like, oh, I have somebody to hang with. So they may have been keeping me company too.
And you were probably more open then as it goes, the first couple of days you're getting used to being on set, seeing what the vibe is.
Yeah.
Like you said, who's hanging with who. They can talk to you then. They can actually connect with you then. Where in a couple of days from then, you probably weren't going to be so available.
That's really true. Yeah.
So fascinating. So is that I know this has happened before. So this isn't the first time it's happened.
No. Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah.
Have you had other instances that you could share?
You mean on set or just in life? Or?
On set. It's how fun to have your own psychic medium on set, but nobody necessarily realizes that's your other life.
Yeah. Somebody was putting makeup on me. I think we were in Texas. And all of a sudden I saw this older man on a stage, and he was talking to everyone. And he was one of those people who, like, if you gave him a mic, you'd almost prefer he not use the mic,
Yes. Can't get it away from him.
Yeah. And when I told her, she said, I don't know. But then the next day she said, oh my God, that was my mentor in school. Of course. Like it way. Then clicked. So that'll happen. This was another makeup person. I just kept feeling, I don't want to be here. 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 And I was like, so you kind of done? Is the next chapter starting? She was like, what? I was like, with makeup, are you kind of thinking about something else? And she's like, yeah, real estate. And I was like, good for you, So sometimes those kinds of things will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, where you connect with people on a whole other level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope. To me, it just felt like, okay, you've completed this like first chapter of your life and pursuing this one skill, and you've done it. And so they're saying, go ahead, you're free.
That must have been a huge relief.
I hope so for her. She was really lovely. Yeah, there's so many unique people. It was the next day I was back on Dexter. I was up in a bedroom waiting to get called down. And I went to the bathroom, and there was an old no smoking sign in there. And an older woman said, this is a disgrace. And I got the feeling, this feeling of, oh, I want to go smoke on the balcony. I thought, oh, I think this is Mrs. Guggenheim. Like, who are you to tell me not to smoke in my own home?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. That was kind of fun. I had to tell her to be quiet, though, because I did need to get ready that day. And I was like, you have to be, I can't, not right now.
That's wild.
Yeah, she was funny. She was spicy. I liked her. Yeah.
So does this happen often? as a psychic medium for you that whether you're grocery shopping or you're running your son to an errand, or people that have moved on will try to connect with you to share messages?
Yeah, it does happen. Like I try to turn it on and off, but if I'm like in a waiting room, like when I take my son to occupational therapy, I'll be sitting there and then all of a sudden I feel someone, I had one that was kind of confusing the other day because it was somebody's dad and he was so proud of her, but I think it was almost like his higher self or a deeper part of his soul. Cause I was like certain he had passed, but, he's still alive. And so I gave the message thinking he had crossed over. And then a week later said that she had shared it with him and he cried. So I don't know if I just voiced something that he was unable to say himself and his soul was so desiring to say it that it came through. Another time, because I was coaching this actor the day before he'd come over. I was with my niece at a nail salon and we were drying our nails, and there was a stack of magazines, which is always kind of fun because like I never look at magazines anymore,
I know.
And she's like, "Who's that?" And it was like a picture of JFK Jr. And I said, "Well, that was kind of like our royal family at a certain time." And then I thought of this actor who was coming over the next day, and I was like, "Why am I thinking about him? He's such a blast." So I told him and he was like, "Jensen, shut the fuck up." And I was like, "What? What?" It turned out that he has someone very close to him. His mom is romantically involved with somebody from that family. Yeah. And they were in the middle of a fight. So similarly, she is not dead. I thought, oh, okay, she must be crossed over before he said that she is romantically involved with this person. I said, "I think she wants to talk to you." And he's like, "I don't know if I can do that." And I was like, "I don't think she's able to make the first move."
So wait, his mom wanted to talk with him.
His alive mother somehow reached out to me in the same way that a dead person would to get my attention. So I would talk about her to him.
To her son.
Yeah, to sort of remind him, like, let's talk, to get her on his attention. Does that make sense? Maybe
Yeah,
I said
sure.
that in a weird. Yeah. I mean, it was very odd, but the whole connection of like looking at an Us Weekly with JFK Jr. on it to this man, to being in a room with him, that person dates someone from that family is dating his mother, to he had just had a fight with his mom. And I was like, I think this is her. That's the piece I forgot to say. That was the piece where like she, I think her higher self or her mama soul reached out to mine to hopefully start the bridge.
So interesting. So I'm curious if somebody from the Kennedy family wanted your attention in order to, she must be a nice woman. So they wanted your attention so that they could mend the fence.
Yeah.
Mom and son.
Yeah. Apparently it's so, and that's so funny. I guess, I mean, I talked to a lot of like regular spirits on the other side, but I also had one time with Grace Kelly that kind of blew my mind.
Please share.
So I was sitting with these two sisters who were so lovely and had dark hair and probably like, I don't know, maybe 5'3", and we were kind of having a quiet session. And all of a sudden this woman appears and she had short blonde hair, like to beneath her cheekbone. And she appeared as her younger self, kind of like 18, 17, but a young feeling 17, 18. And she sort of ducked out from the side of a house and ducked back and ducked back out again and ducked back. And I kind of laughed and I told them, and I was confused because her appearance, she looked so different than they did, just sort of like a different combo of genetics, because they were on the Tanner side and, Grace Kelly is Grace Kelly. And so I told them, and their jaws dropped, and they said, "No, she's our cousin once removed." And so that was so interesting. And I just remember going to Whole Foods after, like you do when you're a hippie. And I was just standing in line and thinking, holy fuck, I just met Grace Kelly. And she was so nice.
Right. And she wanted to hang with you girls.
Yeah, she came to hang. It was crazy.
Because they were all cousins, correct? The two you were doing the reading with were cousins with her. That's so funny.
Yeah, I think maybe she had been a cousin of like their grandma or something, but it was not too distant. Just, people get different rolls of the dice of that was so confusing because sometimes when people come through, I'm like, oh, they kind of look like you, but sometimes they don't.
Right.
But I was like, well, I don't know who she is. I was like, I remember describing her as like her posture was so lovely. And that kind of struck me. There's a real poise. And then that was kind of interesting because the poise had always been there. There was just kind of an extra buoyancy when she was little. And kind of fun that I feel like she went back to a freer, sincere age on the other side that didn't have the same restraints that I'm imagining she had.
Right. As princess.
Later. Yeah.
So that's an interesting point to bring up just about death in general. And maybe you can explain this, of course, much better than me, but that we are restored to a better age or a better state.
Yeah. I get the sense that people get to choose maybe and are drawn back to when they were the happiest.
Oh.
Yeah. Although I guess one caveat, and that would be sometimes people do show up for other people in a way that they would remember them too. But I would imagine you can slip in and out of form. So like my grandma has come through a few times to clients of mine.
Your grandma did.
Yeah. They're like, she's so sweet and she has short gray hair. And she'd like to go for walks with you, which is what we really loved to do. We had these long walks and, but I wonder how she might show up to someone else, she might be 19.
Right. She might show up in a way that you can recognize her, or that if she's showing up to somebody else, you'll recognize who it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in her heavenly life, she might be 16.
She might be like, I look good, Yeah. Yeah.
So remind us how you became a medium. How did this connect? We've told some other stories, but how did you really perfect this? Because this is like breathing for you. It seems like it's so easy for you to connect with the other side where maybe some of us really struggle with it.
It took me a long time to understand myself. And I just always kind of felt like I wanted to pop things that didn't feel real to me or felt fake to me.
So what do you mean pop? What do you mean pop?
Like if I was at a party and everyone was like, but they weren't actually having fun, like I would have the urge to pop them like a bubble and be like, stop it. That was the feeling I had. And sometimes when I was really little, I would tell people, don't be happy if I thought they were. This is when I was like 2. Yeah. My mom would be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What is wrong? Funny. I don't know. And so I always felt very different. I always heard things and felt like I was seeing things, but I didn't have the language for it or even the word, quite frankly, for it. But then after I was in a really bad car accident, all amped up like crazy, just very luckily, I lived down the hall from a woman who came from a long line of psychic mediums. And I bumped into her in the laundry room at my old place and made a joke about something vaguely kind of witchy sounding. And she said, I knew it. And she pushed me to develop it and start. She said, at least take a class. There was a wonderful man named Stephen Robinson who died about maybe a year ago. He had this place in the city called the Holistic Studies Institute. It was his wish to train lots of mediums. And I agree with him that everybody has this ability. And so I did that. And then I just kind of thought, well, yeah, I guess I'll start sharing this because it was kind of bombarding my life and it just feels good to channel. I really enjoy it. And so it gradually took over more and more, which is fine with me. I really enjoy it.
So what were some of the finer points that Stephen Robinson used in teaching you? You already knew this. You already inherently knew this. There were some things he sort of hacks or I don't know, some techniques.
Yeah, I mean, I think psychometry is a great tool to use, and so when you're in person with someone, I mean, really, we all touch our phones so often that,
I know.
If you hold somebody else's phone for a few minutes and close your eyes, you're going to start to see things about them because your aura will sort of get into things. And so that's kind of one fun way to do it. And also, I think delivering messages in a group setting where if I couldn't quite put into words what I was seeing, he could kind of back me up if he was also seeing it. So you just kind of build that confidence, just like doing repetitions. That I found to be quite helpful, is that really trusting yourself and trusting what it feels like. Because I think people sometimes it'll be a crazy, like, oh my God, I just saw something, straight out of The Shining. But usually it's a very gentle image or thought or feeling or sound that arises. And you just take a second to notice it. Mm. And then, when it's in the instance of a session or a reading, I know it's for that person because I'm talking to them. But if it happens and I'm in a room full of people, I'll get a tug as to, I think it's that person over there. And oh my God, how do I say this to this perfect stranger? Let's see if it knocks again. And then what I learned from Stephen was, if it knocks a few times and you're getting anxious, deliver the message and then the feeling will go away and you've done your job. So that was really helpful. Yeah.
So as you said earlier, we all sort of have this ability. And I feel like there's a growing interest in expanding this ability ourselves because we still want to doubt it. Like we still want to doubt our intuition. Do you have any suggestions for people who might want to tap into this? Or is there a way to tap into it that's super comfortable?
Yeah. I think a really fun way to do it is if you're with a friend, you can you can each pull up a photo of someone that the other person doesn't know. Mm-hmm. And say, look into their eyes for a few minutes and then tell me what you're getting. Because the eyes truly are the windows to the soul. And you can and since the other person knows them, they can go, oh, yeah, she does ride horses. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a fun one. I feel like that's kind of easy. Another thing that I often suggest is, sometimes I feel like as you're getting used to the feeling of messages coming in, it can feel like, where did that come from?
Right.
It can feel like that. And so when you have one of those, just jotting it down back of an envelope, that some junk mail that you're not going to use, there's something about actually writing it down versus typing it in a note. There's a connection to the pen that happens. Mm-hmm. And that can be quite telling because you can, oh my God, that person did call me. I forgot. It helps strengthen your trust in yourself.
Sometimes we'll even get it'll feel like, why am I seeing this bird? Why is that crossing the road right now? Things like that, as you suggested, make a little note of it and see a few days later, check back. It may just become very apparent to you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It might make sense. It might be that, you slow down and then you get to your next place and then somebody from your family calls and says, it's the anniversary of grandma's death today. You're like, oh, okay, that's it.
That was the sign.
Yeah. And then I feel like as it continues further, sometimes there are relationships with animals that also feel like a new form of communicating is starting, and that you're starting to get messages. And because I feel like that sort of I've been more interested in lately connecting with different types of beings and spirits, and that I feel like there's, of course, you have to find a way in somehow. Everyone's like, oh, am I going to get my house? Am I going to get my car? The psychic stuff, or I want to talk to somebody I really love who's crossed over. And you get kind of used to those things, which is definitely a blessing. And then start to get curious about other things too. I remember I briefly lived in LA and I really deeply missed the city. And I would go outside every night with hot chocolate, which is so weird because it was so warm, and just I would sit on the curb because I miss Stoops. And this cat, I don't know whose cat it was, would come and find me and sit by me.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah. And then one night I didn't go out there because my mom was visiting, and I woke up the next morning and I opened the curtains and the cat was in the tree across from my window. And I was like, you are more than a cat. You are a teacher and you're helping me right now. Because sometimes it can be maybe a spirit or a fairy or some sort of being coming in a package that you can see to work with you.
Right. The cat was your guide.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
How can we as individuals really shift ourselves into this next dimension? And it's really popular to do channeling right now. I don't know that everybody's as connected perhaps, or it's not necessarily, I don't know, you tell me, is it something we can master or is it something to take lightly?
I think it's something to find the way that works for you, because it might not be it might not be a verbal channeling. It might be through drawing, or it might be through like feeling drawn to certain areas. And then you find yourself organizing a cleanup, and then you plant some flowers and the native birds and bees start to return. I feel like if you ask to let spirit come through you, it'll find the way that it's meant to come through you, and that could be in a really quiet way, or it could be in a kind of louder way.
Yeah, that's probably important to remember. I think we think sometimes that if spirit's going to speak to me, it better be in a very profound kind of way, but it could be in a much more subtle way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And sometimes they come through just like when you sit down to watch a movie and you suspend your disbelief for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Try to have that throughout your day, and trust that something is going to happen today that is not just of this material world.
Mm-hmm.
And just bank on it. Just try banking on it. Sometimes I'll find myself really missing someone who's crossed over. And then next thing I know, there's an elderly man talking my ear off about somebody he met at the VA while I'm at the gym. And I'm like, well, that's my grandpa saying hi. And he's looking at me like, I don't even know why I'm talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I know why. And then I'll get a little message within there of something within the conversation is usually something I've been thinking about doing, but haven't sort of pulled the trigger on. And so, yeah, that as you kind of get used to just going, it doesn't mean you have to become, I think gentle is better than huge. I think if you do gentle steps, they tend to work better.
The dimensions are closing. We were talking earlier, it feels like things mesh very much. So I want to dismiss something sometimes because, well, that doesn't make sense. Did I just see that shadow behind the tree? And so I'm just going to keep walking and pretend I didn't see that. Or I'm just going to keep driving. But how do we become more comfortable or become comfortable even with our own intuition when we see, hear, feel, experience some of these things?
That's a great question. Sometimes I like to talk back to things and say, like, were you there? And they might get quiet and shy for a minute. And then later on, you'll open something up and it's a really beautiful drawing of a big shadow. And you're like, okay, good one. Guess you were there. I find there's a lot of humor with this kind of stuff, which is a lot of fun.
Why do you say that?
They're just so playful. I feel like these beings that really exist in the next dimension or the dimension after, or cross back and forth between lots of them, aren't so bogged down by material concerns. I think as your vibration rises, it moves from a competitive place to a very collaborative place, to then a place of we're not only all on the same team, we really are all the same thing. And so I think with that comes quite a bit of joy. Yeah.
Why do you say joy?
I think because there's a peacefulness in the light. And maybe they're showing the joy. Sometimes to find the balance, I think you have to swing to the other side, And so, right now is, in our plane, good God, is it a stressful time? There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Every day.
That's why you're on, Jensen. I'm like, we got to laugh things up here. Let's lighten it up.
You're like, this is hard, and then
and people are scared.
People are really scared. And, one way of releasing fear is through laughter or through crying or through touching the ground and then seeing that a squirrel moved the tulip bulb that you planted. And isn't that so funny that it sprouted over there? Like it really, I feel like they're trying to lift our spirits so that we can raise our vibrations enough to start to heal and let go. And that's kind of one thing I feel. And then the other thing I wonder is if there's almost like a split happening.
Definitely. Do you feel there's a split happening?
Yeah, I think there's a split happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of split would that be?
That there's a lot of fear in the people who are fighting to hold on to power and control, and that they're doubling down. And I think to balance things out, Spirit is having the people who are more open to being connected connect doubly as well.
Right.
To balance it. And so it's like really. And then my hope is that the positive is a lot stronger than the negative ultimately, that there might be a lot of ugliness and pain as there is right now, but there's a quiet strength to it, and then it can't be broken in the way that the other stuff can. I mean, it can do a lot of destruction, don't get me wrong, but yeah, that's the feeling I get.
Yeah. I would agree.
And I think,
I frankly agree. There's a big split going on, and you're going to live in fear and believe this fearful stuff, or there's this other side that's much more connected and, as you say, has a quiet strength to it that will push forward and move on.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. Do you wonder too if part of that quiet strength and pushing on in a good way is a rebalancing as well into like a divine feminine or something?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's a balancing of both. There's a balancing of the divine masculine, which doesn't necessarily have to be beating you over the head.
Yeah.
But reclaim its sense of moral and ethical strength within themselves and a sense of understanding and kindness. I also feel the divine feminine stepping forward out of the shadows and not feeling like they're going to be oppressed or attacked for it also adds to that balance.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That makes a lot of sense.
We are still being attacked, obviously.
Yeah.
In certain countries. But even in an underlying societal way, I still see it in certain parts of the United States. But I feel like the women are feeling more empowered, but in a gentle way.
And then when I feel into that really feels like that same strength that cannot be touched, kind of a quiet strength like that, that's not dependent on something outside of it, but is just going to continue on.
So that sort of being said, I'm curious too if you're starting to get connections from other people who are still living because they can connect through you and they want to be sure these messages are shared while they're still here on planet Earth.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And if they can do something to help and they need, especially if, it's funny when you said that just now, the thought I had was, everybody makes mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone makes mistakes, especially parents, and if they've been able to evolve and heal, but haven't been able to repair with their child or adult child, they don't want to leave the earth with their kid walking through life with the viewpoint that everybody's out to get me and fuck everything.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. I'm sure that's how, many of us are existing right now. We're sort of in and out. And so if people can connect with you and send a telepathic message to you, that's a healing opportunity. You're still acting as a healer and a messenger.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really try to. And just as you're saying, I mean, it comes across in the same way where I'm like, why do I feel like I need to go to this place? I'm like, what is the deal? And then I go and I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. When you're a mom of a young child, that's true.
Yeah. Somebody came over to me and shared a lot of personal stuff, and then looked at me sort of dumbfounded, like, why did I share this? And then somehow the topic turned a corner into, I think, parenting or something. So then I shared about my son who has autism. And he in turn shared about somebody that he works with whose son is just kind of just beginning to navigate all of this and, the differences in parents and feelings and whatever. And then I knew right then, and not in a codependent way, but in a way of like, well, I think it might help this person if I find a way to have a conversation with them at some point in time, And so now I'm just kind of wondering when that will happen, but I feel like I can almost see him already. And yeah. So that's sort of like a half-finished message, but I think the other guy came to me, so I would go to the other guy.
Right. So the circle will be complete and you can offer support as a parent, which it's a very challenging situation at this time. I actually think our autistic children are ahead of their time and they're a connector to the universe and to other dimensions. And
I think so too.
We're not quite getting that. So we'll get it. They're sort of the canary in the mine that's, they'll survive. They're here to share messages with us. We just haven't quite caught up with them, actually.
Yeah, especially with how they use language.
Exactly. This is a whole other conversation, but yes,
it really
exactly
is.
how they use language or don't use language. So they're very telepathic.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's so magical.
So how does somebody find you and what do you offer as a psychic medium? Is this something that you always thought you would do as part of your career?
No, I did not anticipate this at all. I mean, growing up, I played a ton of cello and I loved acting. And then I went to, to NYU to study acting and then started working. And then this popped up and it's just grown and grown and grown in my life. And I truly love it. And love sharing it. And so now, folks I'm on Instagram at Readings with Jensen with an O-N. And then same thing for the website. And I do private readings and message circles and group events. And then more recently in my life, I'm starting to now overlap my two worlds. And
Good.
Yeah, which I really like because there is something magical about filming things and being on an adventure with different people. And so I really like getting to, take this and share how I tune in a bigger way so more people can understand it or connect with it. And
Wait, tell us that sounds like that's not the whole story. What's really going on? Are you doing a show? Are you going to locations? Or
I'm saying I would really love to do a show is basically what I'm saying.
Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. And
I think it'd be amazing.
Thanks. I got close to something actually with my sister recently, which was like a gift from God. I was like, are you kidding? A show with my sister? We would have a blast. She is so psychic too, but she doesn't give readings, but she's very psychic as well. And she has this older woman. So she has a resale shop, like a little thrift store, like connected to her house. That she started, and she helped kind of sort through a bunch of things after this old woman passed. And weirdly, right before this old woman passed, because my dad's an estate planning attorney, though I felt the old woman, and I was like, who is this? And I called my dad, and he was like, oh yeah, this woman's about to pass. And she lived a very long time and had a great life and a bunch of beautiful things. And so my sister was hired to help sort of sort through it all. This lady is now in my sister's house and helping her with her business, and is like, this woman on the other side, this client of my father's who passed away, is an active participant in my sister's work life. And it's so interesting. And she tells her what to do and gives her heads up on things. And it's so fun. And so anyway, I would love to do a show with my sister.
That would be so fun.
I think we'd have a fucking blast, man.
Huh.
Yeah. And I just think, the land has so much to say. I'm so concerned about the environment. And I feel like as we tell the stories and they're heard, things get ironed out energetically. And so I really want to be of use in that way. And I feel like one way to share those messages is, to use, put them in the package of content, so to speak, and people can dive in or not dive in as they please.
Yeah, I like that sense of doing grid work and I don't know if that's how you feel about it, but that sense of grid work and honoring what the land has experienced and it often shares its own secrets,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been mistreated.
Yeah.
And that can restore it, the sort of work you're talking about. So do you ever work with anyone one-on-one to help coach them into being a better psychic or a better medium? Do you have anything you could share with our audience that's some kind of modality or some kind of something that they could sort of practice on the daily to increase their psychic skills or intuition or their mediumship?
Yeah. I like to do things that you can easily fold into your day and sometimes like stack with other tasks because there's so much going on, So I get a lot of messages when I'm in the shower. I think water is such a powerful conduit. And so just taking a second to really breathe and say, I'm open when you find yourself in water, I think is one way to do it. And again, kind of keeping that little piece of paper you can jot things down on to come back to.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I would say is be brave. So if you do get the hunch and you want to ask somebody a question or you're kind of sensing something, find a way to say it or just say, this might sound really weird, but blah, 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 blah. See what happens. Because as you have to kind of practice that. And it gets smoother and smoother as you do it. And it helps realize, oh, I'm not crazy. Actually, I'm thinking something. So sharing it, I think, is important. So listening to it, sharing it.
Really share your spiritual experiences. Is that what you're also saying?
Yeah, share it. Share it with if you're getting a message for someone or share it with somebody else. Yeah. And I think leave a little bit of room to be bored. Because I think that opens space up. I think when we're constantly consuming something, then it can be hard to receive a message because they're always trying to give us messages. But, let yourself be bored for a second. I think that's helpful, actually. There's such I think within this current pace of like, what's going to happen? And, everybody wants to go fast and anticipate. I think it's a really kind of powerful protest to stop for a second and reground and dare to actually be bored and then come back. Be in a space that's not getting filled with other things.
That's wise advice. Actually, it also gives you the opportunity to be creative. You don't know what will come through in that space of boredom, in that space of nothingness.
Yeah.
Let the logical mind take a rest.
Yeah.
I love that. Jensen, are you going to be speaking anytime soon? Will you be in public anytime soon that people can catch you? Are you going to be on the screen anywhere soon? We can see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure what they've titled this, but I have a really fun film I did recently about these two sisters, and one is a practicing witch and one isn't. Naturally.
Oh, I can't wait.
So that's coming out. I'll put that on my Readings with Jensen.
Okay.
And then I did an interview after you listen to Soul Fam. Another fun podcast is one called From the Void with John Williamson. Okay, so I did an episode with him, and then the part 2 of that is coming out sometime soon. Thank you so much for your message, too. It really means a lot to me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So I'll share the message with the audience again. The message that I received as I was waiting for Jensen to jump on was that she is a very eloquent and elegant actor, and that she is helping actually to break through some of the barriers that female actors have faced for many, many decades. And she's doing just gangbusters was what the guide had said to me.
That's a very nice thing that she said. I hope so. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Soul Fam podcast. Be sure to tune into every episode where we dive into a different rabbit hole of the known and unknown to empower you in conscious living and exploration of the greater universe. We hope you leave each episode with a little stardust in your hair and inspiration in your heart. With love from your Soul Fam.